My dad secretly sold my college fund to buy his new wife a beach house, then had the audacity to ask me to co-sign a loan for my sister's college. When I refused, he started showing up at my workplace. I, 25F, recently discovered that my father, 52M, had completely drained my college fund, a fund that my late mother had specifically set up for me before she passed away when I was 12. This wasn't just any savings account, this was money my mom had meticulously saved from her own inheritance and career earnings, specifically earmarked for my education. She was diagnosed with an aggressive form of breast cancer when I was 11, and one of her last acts was ensuring this fund was properly set up for my future. Here's where it gets really messed up. I only found out about this when I was going through some old paperwork at my grandmother's house, my mom's mom. I found the original documents for the college fund, which should have had over $180,000 in it by now. When I tried to access the account, I discovered it had been emptied 3 years ago, right around the time my father married his new wife, Diane, 38F. Let me give you some background about Diane. She came into the picture when I was 19, right as I was starting college. At first, she seemed nice enough, always trying to be my friend, buying me expensive gifts, inviting me on shopping trips. Looking back now, I realize she was love-bombing me to get me to accept her relationship with my dad. They had apparently met at some luxury real estate convention. She's a high-end realtor, or at least pretends to be one, more on that later. At first, I thought there must have been some mistake with the fund. I confronted my dad about it, expecting some reasonable explanation. Instead, he got defensive and eventually admitted that he had used the money to buy a beach house in Florida for Diane. His justification? Diane always dreamed of having a beach house, and the money was just sitting there since you decided to work through college anyway. Yes, you read that right. I had been working 3 jobs through college, taking out loans, and barely sleeping because I thought the college fund didn't exist anymore after Mom died. My father had never corrected this assumption. He just watched me struggle for years while sitting on my mom's money, only to give it to his new wife. I worked as a barista in the mornings, a library assistant between classes, and a waitress on weekends. I developed severe anxiety and depression from the stress, and my grades suffered because I was constantly exhausted. Meanwhile, Diane was posting Instagram stories from their beach house, complaining about the challenging process of choosing the right marble for their kitchen countertops. But wait, it gets better, or worse, depending on how you look at it. Last month, my half-sister Jessica, 19F, Dad and Diane's daughter, got accepted into an expensive private university. Suddenly, my father started calling me constantly, asking to meet up for coffee. I agreed, thinking maybe he was finally going to apologize or make things right. During those years of me struggling through college, he would occasionally make comments about how character building it was for me to work my way through school. Now I realize he was just justifying his own theft. Nope. He wanted me to co-sign a loan for Jessica's college education because his credit is shot from buying the beach house and other investments with Diane. The audacity of this man to ask me to go into debt for my half-sister's education after he gave away my college fund to his wife is just... I can't even find the words. During the coffee shop conversation, he tried to manipulate me by bringing up Mom. "Your mother would want you to help your sister," he said. This made me see red. I stood up and told him, perhaps louder than I should have, "Mom wanted me to go to college without crushing debt, but you stole that from me to buy your trophy wife a beach house." I refused to co-sign, obviously. I told him that he made his choice when he decided to steal my college fund, and I wouldn't be putting my financial future at risk after what he did. He started crying in the middle of the coffee shop, saying I was being selfish and that family helps family. The irony was completely lost on him. He then tried to guilt me by saying that Jessica might have to give up her dream school, and how could I do that to my sister? That's when things got really uncomfortable. He started showing up at my workplace. I'm an accountant at a mid-sized firm downtown. The first time, he came with flowers and tried to talk to me in front of my coworkers. I told him to leave and that we could talk about this outside of my work hours. He left, but then he started coming back every few days, sometimes with Diane, sometimes with Jessica, who, by the way, had no idea about any of this, and I feel terrible that she's caught in the middle. One particularly embarrassing incident occurred when he showed up during a client meeting. He somehow convinced the receptionist to let him through by saying it was a family emergency. He burst into the conference room, causing my client to spill coffee all over their financial documents. My boss had to escort him out while he was shouting about family obligations and how I was destroying Jessica's future. My colleagues started asking questions, and my boss pulled me aside to ask if everything was okay. It was mortifying having to explain that my father was essentially stalking me because I wouldn't co-sign a loan after he stole my college fund. My boss was surprisingly understanding and had security block him from entering the building. She even offered to let me work from home for a while if I needed to. This made him escalate to calling my company's main line repeatedly and trying to reach me through colleagues' extensions. He even started reaching out to my friends on social media, telling them I was destroying the family and punishing Jessica for adult problems. Some of my coworkers started getting Facebook messages from him, asking them to talk sense into me. The breaking point came when he somehow got my grandmother's phone number, they hadn't spoken since Mom died, and tried to convince her to talk some sense into me. My grandmother, bless her heart, ripped him a new one. She told him that my mother would be disgusted with what he'd done with the money she'd saved for her daughter's future. She reminded him that Mom had specifically told him on her deathbed to make sure I got a good education. This sent him into a rage. He started posting long rants on Facebook about how ungrateful I am and how I've been poisoned against him by my mother's family. He even had the nerve to claim that Mom would have wanted the money to go toward keeping the family together, apparently, by buying his new wife a beach house. He started sharing old photos of Mom and me, with long captions about how she would be disappointed in what I've become. Then I discovered something that made my blood boil even more. A mutual friend who works in real estate let slip that Diane hasn't actually sold a house in over 2 years. Her luxury realtor status is completely fake, she just posts other people's listings on her social media and pretends they're her clients. All those posts about her successful career were lies. She's been living off my dad's income, and apparently my college fund, this whole time. I've blocked him on everything, but flying monkeys keep coming out of the woodwork. Diane's family members I've never even met are messaging me about how I'm tearing the family apart. Her sister even had the nerve to tell me that since my mom is dead, I should be grateful that Diane is willing to be a mother figure to me. I'm 25 years old, I don't need a mother figure, especially not one who helped steal my education fund. Some of my own extended family members are saying I should just help Jessica because she's innocent in all this, which is true, but that doesn't make it my responsibility to fix my father's mess. My aunt, Dad's sister, called me to say that while what Dad did was wrong, I should be the bigger person and help Jessica because that's what family does. I reminded her that she hasn't spoken to her own brother in 5 years because he borrowed $5,000 from her and never paid it back. She hung up on me. The most infuriating part? I recently found out through a family friend that the beach house isn't even in my father's name, it's solely in Diane's name. So he didn't just steal my college fund, he gave it away without any protection for himself. And now he's trying to guilt me into taking on massive debt because of his poor decisions. The friend also mentioned that Diane has been talking about selling the beach house, the house bought with my college fund, to upgrade to a bigger one. I've started seeing a therapist to deal with all this, and she's helping me process the anger and betrayal. But sometimes I lie awake at night, thinking about how my mom worked so hard to secure my future, only for her husband to give it all away to a woman she never even met. My therapist suggests that this isn't just about the money, it's about my father betraying not only me but my mother's dying wishes. Through all this, I've been finding old videos of Mom on our family computer. There's one where she's talking about her hopes for my future, specifically mentioning the college fund and how she wants me to be able to focus on my studies without financial stress. Watching these videos has been both healing and heartbreaking. They've also strengthened my resolve not to give in to my father's manipulation. My grandmother has been my rock through all of this. She's offered to help me pursue legal action, and has been gathering documents from when Mom first set up the fund. She's also been helping me emotionally, sharing stories about Mom that I'd never heard before. Did you know my mom actually turned down a promotion at work because it would have meant less time with me? She chose to put that extra money into my college fund instead. Jessica sent me a long text yesterday saying she understands why I won't co-sign the loan and that she's sorry for everything Dad has done. She's looking into community college options now, which makes me feel guilty even though I know this isn't my fault. We had a long phone conversation where she revealed that Dad and Diane had promised her she could go to any college she wanted, leading her to apply only to expensive private schools. She's understandably upset about their false promises. More family secrets are coming out now. Apparently, Dad has a history of financial manipulation that I never knew about. My uncle, Mom's brother, told me that before Mom got sick, she had actually considered divorce because Dad had been making risky investments without telling her. She stayed because she didn't want to put me through a divorce, but she made sure to set up my college fund in a way that was supposed to be protected. Unfortunately, she trusted Dad to honor her wishes after she was gone. I just don't know how to move forward from here. Part of me wants to maintain a relationship with Jessica, but I don't know how to do that without having to deal with my father and Diane. Another part of me wants to just move away and start fresh somewhere else, where nobody knows this humiliating story. My company actually has an office in Seattle, and my boss mentioned that a transfer might be possible if I'm interested. The whole situation has made me reevaluate a lot of things about my childhood. Looking back, there were so many red flags about Dad's relationship with money and truth. Like how he would always buy expensive gifts after doing something wrong, or how he would make promises about future things so he didn't have to deal with present problems. I'm starting to wonder how much of my childhood memories are real and how much was manipulation. Am I being unreasonable for refusing to help with Jessica's college? Should I pursue legal action? How do I deal with the flying monkeys and the workplace harassment? I feel like I'm going crazy sometimes, doubting my own decisions even though I know I'm right. Edit 1. Holy cow, this blew up overnight. Thank you all for the supportive comments and awards. To address some common questions. 1. Yes, I've documented everything, including his workplace visits and the harassing calls. 2. I'm looking into getting a restraining order, especially after the workplace incidents. 3. Some people have asked about the timeline. My mom passed when I was 12, Dad married Diane when I was 22, and I discovered the missing money about 6 months ago. 4. For those suggesting I sue, I'm consulting with a lawyer next week to explore my options, but apparently since my dad was the custodian of the account, it's complicated. 5. Jessica and I have agreed to meet for coffee next week, just the two of us. I want her to know this isn't about her. Edit 2. For those asking about my student loans, I currently have about $98,000 in student loan debt. I had to take an extra semester because I couldn't handle the full course load while working 3 jobs, which added to the total. I'm on an income-based repayment plan, but it's still a struggle. Edit 3. A lot of people are asking about my mom's videos. Yes, I've backed them up in multiple places. They're pretty much the only thing I have left of her, and after everything that's happened, I'm not taking any chances. Edit 4. Someone in the comments recognized my father's Facebook rants and sent me screenshots of Diane bragging about their beach house renovations in a local Facebook group. She literally used the phrase turning this dump into our dream home. That dump cost more than my entire college fund. I'm feeling sick to my stomach. Update: the lawyer I met with thinks I might have a case, especially since we have documentation of mom's wishes for the fund. She's also concerned about the workplace harassment and thinks we should file for a restraining order. I'll post another update after we file the paperwork. Final update. First, I want to thank everyone who supported me through this insane journey. When I first posted my story 6 months ago, I never imagined how much my life would transform. Let's start with the legal stuff. My lawyer turned out to be a freaking superhero. Not only did we successfully file a lawsuit against my father for misappropriation of the college fund, but we also secured a temporary restraining order that prevented him from contacting me or showing up at my workplace. The judge was particularly sympathetic after hearing about the documented workplace harassment and the clear evidence of my mother's original intentions for the fund. The lawsuit revealed some truly shocking information. During the discovery process, we uncovered that my father had actually been moving money around between multiple accounts, potentially committing financial fraud beyond just my college fund. The forensic accountant my lawyer hired discovered he'd been playing shell games with several family trusts and inheritance accounts. Diane's entire house of cards collapsed spectacularly. Remember how I mentioned she was pretending to be a luxury realtor? Well, her local real estate board launched an investigation after my story went viral and some of her colleagues recognized the details. Turns out she'd been falsely representing her professional credentials for years. She lost her real estate license and is now facing potential fraud charges. My relationship with Jessica has been the most unexpected and positive outcome of this entire nightmare. When everything came to light, she was devastated but incredibly mature. She chose to attend community college and is now on a path to transfer to a state university with scholarships she earned entirely on her own merit. We've actually become close. She sees me more as a mentor now, and we talk at least once a week. My grandmother, who has been my rock through all of this, set up a trust for Jessica using some of her own money. She made it clear that this was separate from my situation and was her way of honoring my mother's memory by supporting her granddaughter's education. As for me, the financial settlement from the lawsuit was significant. While it didn't fully replace the original college fund, inflation and lost investment opportunities are real. It was enough to pay off my student loans and start a substantial emergency fund. My company was incredibly supportive. They not only stood by me during the workplace harassment but offered me the Seattle transfer I had mentioned in my original post. I'm now living in Seattle, working in a fantastic accounting firm, and honestly feeling more peaceful than I have in years. Therapy has been instrumental in helping me process the betrayal and rebuild my sense of self-worth. My therapist helped me understand that my worth isn't defined by my father's actions or the money he stole. The most therapeutic moment came during a mediation session. My father, realizing he was facing serious legal consequences, tried one last manipulation. But this time, I was prepared. I looked him in the eye and told him exactly how his actions had impacted me, not with anger, but with a calm clarity that seemed to genuinely unsettle him. My mother's memory is no longer something he can weaponize or distort. Through all the documentation, the videos, and the stories from my grandmother, her love and intention for my future have been vindicated. Some random updates that might help others in similar situations. Document everything. Don't be afraid to set hard boundaries. Your worth is not determined by toxic family members. Professional therapy is worth every single penny. To the Reddit community that supported me, you were my lifeline during the darkest time of my life. The messages, the advice, the support, it meant more than you could possibly know. Life isn't perfect, but for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm truly in control of my own narrative.